Start with the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most loving. There are moments in our lives when we raise our hands, our hearts trembling, our voices cracking with tears that no one else can see. We whisper a dua, a plea that seems to vanish into the silence of the night. We wait, and the world stays still. And in that stillness, we begin to wonder, did Allah hear me? Did he turn away? Or was my voice too small for his mercy? But what if I told you that no sincere dua ever goes unanswered? That even the ones wrapped in silence are heard by the King of all kings? Sometimes his answer isn't no, it's not yet. Sometimes it's I have something better. And sometimes it's hidden in the lessons he writes into our waiting. Because the dua that Allah does not reject is not always the one that changes our circumstances. It's the one that changes us. There is a dua that Allah never rejects. The dua that rises from a heart broken, not by despair, but by longing. It is the kind of supplication that comes not from the lips alone, but from the depths of one's soul. It is whispered in the stillness of the night, when the world is asleep, and the only one awake is the one who has nowhere left to turn except to the one who never sleeps. There is something profoundly beautiful in this kind of dua. It is not rehearsed, not decorated with eloquent words, not crafted for others to hear. It is raw, trembling, soaked in tears and truth. And it is in that moment, when the world seems silent, that Allah listens most closely. Because when everything else has been taken away, what remains is sincerity. And sincerity is the language Allah never turns away from. You see, sometimes Allah brings us to that point, to that space of desperation, not because he wants to break us, but because he wants us to finally be real with him. When everything else we relied on collapses, when the doors of creation are shut in our faces, that is, when we remember the door that never closes, the door to Allah. The dua that Allah never rejects is the one made not with entitlement, but with humility. It is the plea of a servant who knows they have nothing without him, who stands before their Lord not demanding, but begging, not questioning, but surrendering. My beloved brothers and sisters, have you ever noticed how sometimes your dua feels small, almost insignificant? You whisper it in your heart, unsure if it even reaches beyond the ceiling of your room. But what you don't realize is that the moment your heart turns towards him, the moment your lips form his name, the heavens open. Angels record it. The King of all creation listens. The dua that Allah never rejects is the one that is real, the one that carries the weight of your need and the softness of your faith. Even if the answer doesn't come in the way you expect, even if it seems delayed or withheld, know that Allah has already answered in ways you cannot yet see. Sometimes he removes the harm you never knew was on its way. Sometimes he replaces what you asked for with something better, not better in appearance, but better for your soul. And sometimes he stores it for you in the hereafter, when you will stand before him and see the mountain of blessings that were born from your tears. When you raise your hands and your voice shakes, when your eyes burn from crying, know that none of it is wasted. Not a tear, not a sigh, not a whisper. Allah hears it all. Allah treasures it all. Because dua is not about getting what you want. It is about being where you belong at his feet, in his remembrance, under his gaze. The dua that Allah never rejects is not necessarily the one that brings immediate relief, but the one that transforms the one who prays. It is the dua that softens your heart, that draws you closer to him, that teaches you to depend not on what you can see but on the one who sees all. So when you feel forgotten, remember that the dua that Allah never rejects is not forgotten at all. It travels through unseen realms, carried by angels, preserved by his mercy. It finds its way to him, and he responds in the most perfect way. Sometimes the answer is in the strength he gives you to endure. Sometimes it's in the peace that descends upon your storm. And sometimes it's in the quiet reassurance that though the world may turn away, Allah never does. The dua that Allah never rejects is the one that brings your heart home to Him. My beloved brothers and sisters, sometimes silence is also an answer. We often think that when we make dua, Allah's response must come as a clear sign, a sudden change, a miracle that shifts our reality in visible ways. But there are moments when all we meet is silence, a stillness so deep that it shakes us. In that silence, we start to wonder, has my prayer been lost? Has my Lord turned away from me? But what if that silence isn't absence, but presence? What if it's not rejection, but reflection, a sacred space where Allah is teaching your soul to listen? When Allah seems silent, it's not because He doesn't hear you, it's because He is drawing you closer. In the silence, He strips away the noise of the world so you can finally hear the whisper of your own heart. And within that whisper, in the echo of His remembrance, you see, not every answer is spoken in words. Some are written in time, in the unfolding of events, in the unseen mercy that guards you from what you don't understand. Allah's silence is never neglect. It is divine wisdom waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Think of how a seed grows underground, hidden, silent, unseen. You might think nothing is happening, but in that darkness, something miraculous is taking place. Roots are forming, foundations are being built, and one day, what was once buried bursts into bloom. So it is with your dua. When Allah is silent, your prayer is not dead. It is germinating in the soil of divine timing. You just can't see it yet. And maybe, if He answered you too soon, you wouldn't be ready to receive what you asked for. Maybe His silence is protection, not punishment. My beloved brothers and sisters, silence from Allah teaches us something no spoken answer ever could: patience. It teaches us to worship Him not only in gratitude when things go our way, but in trust when they don't. It's easy to believe when you see the blessing. It's harder to believe when all you see is waiting. But that's where true faith is built. In the moments when you hear nothing, yet continue to whisper, "Why, Allah?" Because it's in that persistence, in that gentle defiance against despair, that your heart grows closer to the one who listens even when He doesn't speak. Sometimes Allah's silence comes to shift your gaze from the gift to the giver. We may start making dua focused on what we want but in the waiting, Allah transforms our hearts to want Him instead. And that's the hidden mercy behind the quiet. It refines our intention, purifies our love, and deepens our understanding. The silence teaches you that dua isn't a transaction. It's a relationship. You don't just ask to receive, you ask to connect. You call on Him because in calling, your heart finds its home. There are times when you'll cry out and hear nothing back but in those moments, remember, silence doesn't mean Allah is distant. It means He's near in a different way, not through answers, but through presence. When you are patient through silence, angels record your endurance as worship. When you continue to pray through silence, Allah writes your name among those who trusted Him without needing proof. So the next time your heartache is in the quiet, don't mistake that silence for neglect. It is a conversation still happening, just not in words. It is Allah writing His answer in a language you may not yet understand. And perhaps when the time is right, you'll look back and realize that His silence was the softest form of mercy. That the space between your dua and His response was filled with unseen compassion, hidden wisdom, and the gentle shaping of your soul. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah delays to elevate. Sometimes the very thing we perceive as delay is not denial but design. We make dua, our hearts full of hope, our eyes filled with tears, and then we wait. Days turn to weeks, weeks to months, and sometimes years pass without the outcome we longed for. In that waiting, our hearts tremble with questions. Why not now? Why not me? But what if the waiting itself is part of the answer? What if Allah is not withholding, but preparing? Because every delay from Allah carries purpose. It refines, reshapes, and raises the one who calls upon Him. You see, elevation does not come through ease. It comes through endurance. Allah delays because He loves you enough to strengthen your soul before He grants your request. The gift is not just in the answered prayer. It's in who you become through the waiting. Imagine a traveler climbing a steep mountain, each step heavier than the last. The higher they climb, the harder it gets. But when they reach the top, the view is unlike anything they could see at the bottom. The climb was painful, but it made the view possible. So too with dua. The longer you climb through patience, the higher Allah raises your rank, and the more beautiful the reward when the moment of acceptance finally arrives. Sometimes Allah delays because He wants your heart to be anchored in Him, not in the outcome. He teaches you through waiting that peace does not come from getting what you want, but from trusting who you're asking. If every dua were answered immediately, we might start to love the response more than the responder. But when Allah delays, He pulls us closer. He makes us rely on Him, remember Him, talk to Him more often, cry to Him in the night, and find comfort in His presence. What you thought was a delay was actually a divine invitation to know Him deeper, to depend on Him fully. And my dear brothers and sisters, know this truth. Allah never delays except to give you something greater. That something greater might not always be visible to your eyes, but it nourishes your soul in ways no worldly gift could. Sometimes He delays because what you ask for is not yet ready, or perhaps you are not yet ready. If He gave it to you now, it might break you instead of bless you. So He holds it back, polishing your heart, testing your patience, until you can carry the blessing without it destroying your faith. The Prophet once said that when Allah loves a people, He tests them. Tests are not punishments, they are pathways to purification. When Allah delays, He is not ignoring your voice, He is perfecting your heart. Every moment of waiting polishes your spirit, teaching you sincerity, humility, and gratitude. And when finally the dua is answered, you will look back and understand why it had to take time, because your heart will have grown strong enough to hold it with wisdom and grace. But even beyond the answer, there is a greater secret. Sometimes the delay is the mercy. Because in that time, you are in constant conversation with Allah. Every prayer, every tear, every sigh is recorded. Angels fold your words into light and raise them to the heavens. In those moments, you are nearest to Him. And is there any greater blessing than nearness to your Creator? If the delay brings you closer to Allah, then it was never a loss. It was elevation disguised as waiting. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, when your dua seems suspended in the unseen, remember Allah delays not because He has forgotten, but because He wants to give you more than you asked. A better timing, a better version, a better you. The delay is His way of saying, I am not done with your story yet. Every unanswered dua is a step upward in the unseen realm. Each second of patience a ladder toward Jannah. Allah delays to elevate not just your circumstances, but your soul. There is hidden wisdom in unanswered prayers. We often think of unanswered dua as loss, as silence, as rejection, as something that slipped through the fingers of divine mercy. But if we could see what Allah sees, if we could glimpse even a fraction of His plan, we would fall into sujood out of gratitude for the prayers He never granted. Because sometimes what you think you needed was actually the very thing that would have harmed you. And what felt like being denied was actually being protected. The wisdom of Allah often hides beneath the veil of what we don't understand. When we make dua, we see only the surface. We see the immediate, the visible, the small corner of our story that is right in front of us. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, sees the entire picture, past, present, future, the ripple of every consequence, in the unseen connections between your life and the lives of countless others. So when He withholds something, it is not out of neglect, but out of mercy. Sometimes He removes a blessing before it turns into a burden. Sometimes He hides a door because behind it lies a storm. We cry for what is gone, but Allah smiles at what He saved us from. You see, unanswered dua is not the end of the conversation. It is a deeper form of communication. It's Allah saying, what you're asking for is not what you need right now. The beauty lies in trusting that truth even when it hurts. Because faith is not proven when everything goes our way. It is proven when it doesn't. And yet we still say, Alhamdulillah. Every believer at some point faces the H of an unanswered prayer. You might have asked for healing that never came, a person who never returned, a dream that never bloomed. But behind every no from Allah, there is a greater yes. One that may take a lifetime to unfold. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah does not withhold to break you. He withholds to bend you toward Him. When He closes a door, it is often because your heart was leaning on something fragile. And He loves you too much to let your faith rest on something that could shatter. The unanswered dua becomes a mirror showing you where your dependence lies. It teaches you that peace does not come from outcomes, but from surrender. And in that surrender, you find freedom. Because when your heart stops demanding and starts trusting, the silence turns into serenity. Sometimes we measure Allah's love by how quickly He gives, but His love is far greater than that. A parent doesn't give a child everything they ask for. They give what's best, even when the child cries for what's not. Similarly, Allah's wisdom goes beyond our comprehension. He withholds to teach, to purify, to redirect us towards something higher. You might have asked for a worldly blessing, but Allah wanted to give you eternal reward. You might have asked for someone's love, but Allah wanted to fill your heart with His own. What you lost in the world, you gain in the unseen, in patience, in reward, in closeness to Him. Think of every unanswered dua as a thread being woven into a grander tapestry. You may only see the back of it now, tangled, messy, confusing. But one day you will see the other side, and then everything will make sense. The unanswered prayers were the strokes that completed the masterpiece. The pain that you thought was purposeless was actually the path to your becoming. So, my dear brothers and sisters, do not despair when Allah doesn't answer as you wish. His silence is filled with wisdom. His delays are rich with mercy. And in His refusals are acts of love. Trust that the one who created your heart knows exactly what it needs to grow, even when it's not what it wants. What feels unanswered is often the most answered of all, because it leads you not to what you asked for, but to the one you asked. And in that realization lies the deepest wisdom of all. There is a rare and sacred beauty in the surrender of dua. When you raise your hands and whisper your heart to Allah, it is not just an act of asking, it is an act of surrendering. It is you laying down your burdens, your desires, your plans, and placing them gently before the one who knows every hidden ache within you. There is something profoundly peaceful about that moment. When you realize that you do not have to control everything, because the one who created everything already does. The beauty of surrender in dua is not about giving up. It is about giving in to divine wisdom, divine mercy, and divine timing. When a believer surrenders through dua, it is not a defeat but a declaration that says, Wa Allah, I trust you more than I trust myself. That moment, my brothers and sisters, is one of the highest forms of worship, because faith is not proven when everything makes sense. It is proven when nothing makes sense, yet your heart still says, I trust my Lord. Surrendering in dua means releasing the illusion of control, letting go of the why, the when, and the how, and resting in the knowledge that Allah's plan will always be better than yours. The world teaches us to fight for everything, to plan, to strive, to demand, to make things happen. But dua teaches us something far more powerful: to kneel, to trust, to hand over the pen of your story to the author who never makes a mistake. You see, the beauty of dua is not that you will always get what you want, but that you are always heard. You may walk away from your prayer mat without the thing you asked for, but never without peace. Because true peace doesn't come from outcomes, it comes from submission. When you surrender in dua, your heart softens. You stop wrestling with destiny and start resting in it. You stop questioning and start accepting. You begin to understand that the one who denied you something today may have saved you from heartbreak tomorrow. And in that understanding, you find beauty even in loss. This surrender transforms dua from a request into a relationship. It becomes not about give me, but keep me near you. Because when your heart truly knows Allah, being close to Him matters more than anything He could give. My beloved brothers and sisters, this is why some of the most powerful duas come from those who have nothing left but Allah. The prophets themselves taught us this. From the depths of the whale, from the fire, from the desert, from the prison, every prophet's dua was born from surrender. They did not command, they submitted. They did not argue with decree, they trusted the decreer. Their power came not from their status, but from their surrender. That is what made their dua unstoppable, not because of the words they said, but because of the hearts that said them. To surrender in dua is to love Allah even when you don't understand His plan. It is to say, even if you take, I will still praise you. Even if you delay, I will still wait for you. Even if you withhold, I will still trust you. That is not weakness. That is strength, the kind of strength that can only come from faith. When you reach that point, your heart becomes untouchable by despair. Because you no longer depend on outcomes. You depend on the one who ordains them. And perhaps the most beautiful part of surrender is this. Once you truly let go, Allah gives you more than you ever imagined. When you empty your hands of your own plans, He fills them with His. When you let go of what you thought you needed, He replaces it with what your soul was truly craving. His nearness, His love, His guidance. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, do not fear surrendering to Allah in your dua. It is not the end of control. It is the beginning of peace. The beauty of surrender is that you no longer need to chase what is written for you. It will find you when Allah decrees it. All you need to do is trust, submit, and keep whispering your heart to the one who never turns away. Because in surrender, your dua becomes more than words. It becomes worship, and in that worship lies the truest form of freedom. My beloved brothers and sisters, there is a sacred nearness that blooms in the waiting, a closeness to Allah that only those who have waited with hope can understand. When your heart aches for an answer that hasn't yet come, when your eyes fill with tears that seem endless, and your hands rise again and again in dua, that is not distance from Allah, that is intimacy with Him. In that space between your plea and his response, he is not ignoring you. He is holding you nearer than you've ever been. The nearness of Allah in the waiting is not a concept. It is a feeling, a reality that whispers to your heart, I am with you, even here. You see, sometimes Allah delays not to test your patience alone, but to gift you presence, his presence. In that waiting, he draws you into conversations that no one else hears. You start speaking to him in ways you never did before. Your dua becomes softer, deeper, more real. You begin to speak to him not only about what you want, but about who you are. The waiting strips away all pretense, leaving behind only sincerity. You start to realize that what you were seeking through your dua was not just a result. It was a relationship. And that relationship grows strongest in the soil of waiting. My beloved brothers and sisters, when Allah makes you wait, it is not because he has abandoned you. It is because he is near you in a way that answering immediately would not allow. Waiting forces you to slow down, to pause, to feel his watchful care over every heartbeat, every tear, every whispered, why Allah? In those moments, he is not silent. He is teaching. He is teaching your heart to find comfort not in change, but in constancy, in his unchanging mercy, his unending care, his infinite nearness. The one who waits upon Allah walks under the shade of his compassion. Think of how the night feels longest before dawn. In that still darkness, you feel every moment stretch, every second ache. But it is in that very darkness that you begin to speak to Allah in a language only the soul understands. Through sighs, through tears, through silence. And then when dawn finally breaks, you realize that the beauty wasn't just in the sunrise. It was in the night that led you there. Because in that night, you learned how to call upon him, how to trust him, how to love him without needing proof. The waiting becomes worship. The delay becomes devotion. The nearness of Allah in the waiting is unlike any other closeness you will ever feel. It is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, comforting. It seeps into your heart like warmth after a long, cold day. You may not even notice it at first, but one day as you sit alone, you will realize that your faith has grown softer, stronger, deeper. You'll see that the waiting taught you patience, that the unanswered dua taught you reliance, that the long nights of asking taught you love. Allah was never far. He was the one holding your heart together while you thought it was breaking. My beloved brothers and sisters, the waiting is not empty. Every second of it is recorded. Every breath of hope, every tear of longing, every whispered Ameen that falls from your lips is gathered by angels, lifted to the throne of the most merciful. And when Allah sees your patience, your sincerity, your persistence, he smiles upon you, because the believer who waits with trust is the one who truly knows their Lord. They are not defeated by delay. They are refined by it. They are not broken by silence. They are strengthened by surrender. And when, at last, the answer comes, whether in this world or the next, you will understand that Allah was never late. He was always right on time. You will realize that the waiting was not a pause in your story, but the very chapter where your faith was written. And even if what you asked for never came in the form you expected, you will find something far greater. You will find Allah himself. And when your heart finally reaches that point, you will know the secret that every soul who has ever waited in faith discovers, that the nearness of Allah in the waiting is the sweetest answer of all.